Well, joining me now in studio to discuss the president's speech further and really to find out where we are as a nation at this point is Dr. Mukhisa Kituyi. He is the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Pleasure to have you with us. Happy Jamhuri Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Now, as you may have heard, the president touched on various issues, a push to relook at tax so that we support the small and medium enterprises, a push for a conflict of interest law. He also talked about making the housing levy voluntary and a call for ensuring we do have universal health coverage. Based on what he said, do you feel inspired today?
I mean, there's a number of things. I think it's a step in the right direction for the president to acknowledge and concede that a mandatory deduction on people's earnings for purposes of a public housing program whose benefits are not to everybody was always against the rules of natural justice. So this, I think it's a good statement of humility to accept that the initial effort had the right goals but the wrong means. And I'm glad that he's come to that position. The second thing is, it's about time that we walk the talk about supporting small and medium businesses in this country. Many small businesses remain too small because of the plethora of government bureaucratic challenges that they face. Tax harassments, licenses and challenges. When government has been facilitated foreign investors, the shift should now be facilitate small and medium enterprises, give them tax breaks, simplify the tax code, make compliance easier, but show them that by being compliant, they get more from government facilitation for their business than just being harassed to pay levies.
Right.
So I think that was a particularly important point to mention.
All right. Other points that were made during this Jamhuri Day celebration at the Nyayo Stadium were calls for unity, and also there were statements made about where we are in the war on graft. Several statements made that the fight on corruption is still ongoing. But for many Kenyans, this simply sounds like a broken record. We hear this day in and day out, yet we still are seeing so many scandals every other week, perhaps, and the economy is taking a big hit as well.
I am aware that the Kenyan economy is taking a big hit from corruption. I am aware that a lot of people get disillusioned. I trust the president means well in the battle against corruption, but all institutions of governance must be rallied to this call. It's not good enough to repeat public statements that will continue the war against corruption. It's how many heads fall that will matter to this country. At the end of the day, we want statistics. In the past 12 months, because of our commitment to the war against corruption, so many senior officers have been sent to jail. So much has been gained back because of what having been stolen from the public. Arrests, weekend detentions are not good enough. Let us get our money back. Let it become so expensive and costly that nobody takes the risk to be corrupt. I think that is the point, the direction should go. So I encourage the positive statements about we are not relenting on our against corruption, but now we want the results. We want heads to roll. We want to make it uncomfortable for anybody to ever think they can steal from us and use that to become leaders.
When do you think we will get there? Because we are at 56 years of independence and we're still having very similar conversations.
I think the main message to Kenyans is the following. At 56, we should not be stuck in apportioning blame for what has happened in the past. We should take stock of where we are and say, can we dedicate ourselves purposefully as a nation to a direction of public discourse and leadership that totally expunges thieves from the leadership mainstream? That we all commit long before the next election that if you are a thief, you are not a serious contender for leadership in this country. So the ball is in the court of the citizens even more than of government. Instead of just sitting back and complaining we are corrupt or corruption is killing us, you elect corrupt leaders. And how do you expect them to give you results other than corrupt results? So if you want to rally around President Kenyatta's call that we have to sustain the war against corruption, we must say now, this is the line we are crossing. From this moment on, no thief can be allowed to be a public leader in this country. And we also call on government to complement our efforts by going beyond arrests and charging people in court. We want heads to fall. We want criminals in court and in jail. And we want reparations for those who have stolen from the public.
Do you believe that we will see that?
I am one of very many Kenyans who believe there are enough Kenyans of goodwill who are now determined that we must expunge thieves from the mainstream of our leadership.
Okay. All right, on corruption, this is a quote that I had come across by Ayn Rand, and it says, "When you see that trading is done not by consent, but by compulsion, when you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, when you see money flowing to those who deal not in goods but in favors, when you see that men get richer by graft and pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed." Is that far too pessimistic?
If you lose the hope and belief that you can stem that decline in society, then your society is doomed and hopeless. But when you see that there's a growing army of citizens who think that they are about something more worthy than greed and the reward of thieves, when you see that the numbers of Kenyans who refuse to become cynical, but say we must now stand up and be counted, and we are able to reclaim the high ground and make our country proud again, then you believe that that final decline will not happen, that something will go be done, and it will be a radical thing to be done, to send thieves to jail.
You are offering a lot of hope and clear solutions as well. You as Mukhisa Kituyi, how would you make that contribution to that change here in Kenya? What role would you play?
At the moment, I support governments. As an Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, I lead an institution which is helping government strengthen governance infrastructure. For example, one of the weaknesses since the last constitution has been the virtual collapse of financial management infrastructure. And public finances are treated like personal resources in a country that had a very, very mature accountability mechanism. Reclaim that. We are working with government to strengthen a commitment to Agenda 2030, inclusion, curb theft, curb illicit flows out of public resources. When Kituyi leaves the UN and becomes a free citizen of Kenya, talking his opinion properly, I'll be party of the large number of Kenyans who say we must put the thieving nation behind us. And I will dedicate the rest of my life in helping to prove that this country has enough citizens who can say enough is enough and who can never be held hostage by thieves and other criminals forever.
All right, you have spoken recently, in fact, in Rwanda at the Kusi Ideas Festival held by the Nation Media Group. And in that, you talked about the importance of Africa knocking down its borders and focusing on intertrade, and also making use of the very migrants that we see trying to get out of Africa. What do nations need to do to realize some of those?
Two things. Nations need to think beyond the next election. That we're in this for the long run. And leaders represent posterity. We lay the foundations for prosperity of posterity. We owe the next generation hope that they will have a better life than their parents had. To do that, you must start looking at how do we develop the Kenyan human resource, for example, to be competitive internationally. How can we position ourselves to be the chief exporters of sophisticated modern service industry when Africa becomes one market? Secondly, what lessons have we learned about declining competitiveness of made in Kenya that has led to the erosion of Kenya's advantage in the commercial regional trade, even East African Community regional trade? Lessons from that must inform national preparedness to be competitive, to be a driver of benefit from a continental free trade area. If we lower our guard, we think short term, we think about the next election, we celebrate petty thieves, we are losing the big game. And we're going to be washed out by countries which are far behind us today, but have the eyes set on the goal in the medium and long term.
And what is your message to the youth? Because essentially it is the youth that are the leaders of tomorrow, but several youth in the country, while many are moving ahead, there are a section of youth that do feel very demotivated at this point.
I can understand about demotivated and hopeless youth, about youth with a good education without an employment opportunity, and the challenges of a quickly shifting marketplace for labor. But my main message is this. Not my message just to youth, my message to Kenyans. Our relevance as leaders, as public intellectuals, as political leaders, is how do we prepare the next generation to take over the leadership, the realms of power in the country. One major thing we have to understand, that millennials are not hostage to the castles we call traditional institutions. They want platforms where they can opt in and opt out. They want to crowdsource ideas about where we go. And I think the main hope we can give them is create possibility, not to reward people who have been competing for 30 years against each other, but to mainstream the constructive energy of young people, to help define the country that they want, to help create the space they want, to help define the solutions that we need. We cannot create solutions for them. They are not lame. They are not incapacitated. They're just, their energy has not been unlocked. And I think it is possible to unlock it. And some countries are already unlocking it. I was looking at the cabinet of Finland today. 34-year-old prime minister, 32-year finance minister, 32-year foreign minister. They're all girls.
Oh, wow.
They are aware that they are able to manage public affairs. We have similar girls and boys in this country. I think the challenge of the next few years is what my generation has not been able to do. Can we unlock their ability to do those things?
All right, awesome. And just in closing, you have done Kenya so proud by being the Secretary General of UNCTAD. Would you ever wish to be the United Nations Secretary General?
No.
Why not?
A number of things. By the end of my current term, I will have lived out of this country for 18 and a half years. I want to spend the balance of my life contributing with whatever knowledge I've gained to my country. Secondly, the position of Secretary General of the United Nations is a position that rotates geographically. Right. So we are in the second or third year of a 10-year mandate for Europe. After Guterres' 10 years, we'll go to Latin America for 10 years. After 10 years in Latin America, you look to Africa. Are you asking me to stay around for another 18 years waiting for a new job?
Not at
all. So there's absolutely no chance, however good you are as an African, to become the next head of the UN.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that to us. And we certainly would be so glad to have you back. We look forward to that. Thank you so much for your time on NTV tonight.
My pleasure, and happy Jamhuri Day.
Thank you.